Hello and welcome to another video. So today we shall have a look, better still, a relook at the Olympus OM-1. This camera I had already featured in the previous video, but the video wasn't really very good. I had some criticism about it, and I do agree that it was not an in-depth view about the camera. So today I'm here about to correct that fact and make the best possible video that I can about the Olympus OM-1, a landmark of a camera that still today has many followers around the world. So, the Olympus OM-1 is an SLR from Olympus, meaning that it has a prism and a reflex viewing through a mirror, and it was Olympus' first SLR, true first SLR, because they made a half-frame Olympus pen that was reflex but was half-frame, and then there was the Olympus FTL, which was a bought-in camera. I don't know from whom, perhaps Mamiya, I don't know. It was not an Olympus at all. It was a screw mount model, very conventional, very uninteresting, and that I have featured already in another video. So Olympus' true first full frame SLR was this one, the Olympus OM-1 in 1972. Now, why is this camera so famous? Why, you may ask, for those of you who are young and belong to the digital age, why it's all the fuss about the Olympus OM-1? So let me start by showing you what was around when the Olympus OM-1 was released. So let's start by Canon. I have here a Canon FTB, and don't worry, it uses the same film and the same format, but it does seem to be a different type of camera, using a much larger film or a much larger negative, which it doesn't. So you see, the Canon is truly huge compared to the Olympus. Now you're beginning to see the sensation that Olympus was when it was launched. Its size, or the like of it, was truly amazing. And it was not just Canon. Let me, for instance, pick up another Japanese camera that the Olympus could happen to bump in the market, which would have been the Pentax Spotmatic, either in F version or even this one. So the Spotmatic, which is not a very big camera, is much bigger than the Olympus. There are some resemblances between them at the prism level. And in Europe it was much the same thing. Europe, by this time, only Praktica was the biggest manufacturer of SLRs. The others went bust by this time. So you see that the Praktica, this is the LC, that is 3 years older than the Olympus, and also it's far from compact and far from beautiful. And even if we go back a few years, in 1959, this dinosaur could have been bought still around 1972, because it was replaced in that very year by the Nikon F2. You see that the Nikon F is also, well, dinosaur compared to this gentle and small looking Olympus OM-1. And now let us compare it with the rangefinder. This is a Minolta 7S, a very popular rangefinder. Admittedly, it's not one of the most compact rangefinders, so I chose it on purpose. But you see that it is really huge compared to the Olympus. And the Olympus features interchangeable lenses. It is an SLR, and this is just a rangefinder. Precisely, it was like Nikon had done with the Nikon F, Olympus wanted to go against the sole remaining manufacturer of importance of rangefinders, which was Leica. The Nikon F really killed the rangefinder era, either from Leica and other makes or contacts, and Olympus was very keen with this camera to kill whatever will was left to use a rangefinder. And by this time, the only available rangefinder, I think, was from Leica. And so this is the Leica M6, which basically is like the M3 or M4 in terms of size. So you see that the Leica has the same width, they share the same width, but the Leica is taller and not as small as the Olympus. And so Olympus had here an argument, a very decisive argument in their favor, which was size. Now, nobody could complain that an SLR was heavy, big, complicated, and so it was in the range of almost everyone, although this camera was aimed clearly at experts and professionals. Although it was not built in the same way as a Nikon was built, but their aim was, if not the professional market, was very, very near. It would be a market for the expert or semi-pro that would like to have a camera that would be light and very small compared to other systems. Good. Now that I have put the Olympus OM-1 into perspective, and I have to just to say one more thing, it's about the name OM, because the camera was born with another name. It was presented as the Olympus M1, but Leica wasn't really very happy with it, and of course demanded that they change the name, because M is something that you associate with an M camera from Leica. I don't think that Olympus was innocent in this choice, and so they changed it to OM, Olympus Master, so it seems. And but it was a bit too late, because by this time a few thousand cameras were already built, and those that are available command high prices due to their rarity. But they are exactly the same as the rest of the OMs that followed. Speaking of Leica, you can see even the switch for releasing the film tip is very similar to in terms of place to the Leica M. Now, the camera is all mechanical. It does not rely on batteries, although it does use one battery for the meter to work. But the camera is not dependent on batteries, meaning that it is a full mechanical camera, and that's great, because even today we can use it without almost any sort of problems. Mechanical cameras are notoriously more reliable than electronic cameras, and in case something should happen, it is much easier to repair a mechanical camera even without parts, because there are no longer parts manufactured for this Olympus or almost any other camera, but they are easier to repair than an electronic version. So the Olympus, I'm sorry I have to bother you with this, is a lesson in industrial design. It was designed by Mr. Maintani, an engineer, but who clearly knew a thing or two about design. Besides being so small, the camera was not designed at random. You have very interesting shapes and lines. You have this wonderful self-timer here, and you have this vertical line that is carried on in this switch that we have talked about. We have the same motif here for the mirror lockup. Yes, the camera does have a mirror lockup, which is great. And then you have these two protuberances here, symmetrically on the sides of the camera, again, the mirror lockup and the flash input for bulb or wire or electronic flash, also symmetrical. And then here you have two other buttons that make sort of an X. You have this delicious part of the camera. It's truly amazing. The design details of the OM-1. This shutter release button is a work of art. Plus it is very ergonomic because it is oval shaped. Nothing new, but very, very comfortable. This switch here, it's also very well designed. It's only for the meter, on and off. The camera is a design in industrial, a lesson in design, industrial design. I mean, it's truly amazing. I really like it. Anyway, so let's go to some more down-to-earth features of the camera. By now you have heard and you know that this camera is full mechanical, with shutter speeds from 1 second to 1,000th of a second, which is slightly disappointing because by this time a top of the range camera could have easily gone to 1/2000th of a second. It features horizontal cloth running shutter. Again, slight disappointment, because by this time vertical run shutters, metallic vertical run shutters, were becoming the norm. Praktica had ditched in Europe all horizontal cloth running shutters. Konica was an enthusiast, Shinnon as well. Nikon had adopted them in their Nikomat line, but not in their top-of-the-range cameras, it's true. And so, even with a very conventional shutter, this camera has a very silent shutter and it's not very noisy. So let's at 1/125th of a second. It's very smooth. The advance lever. This is a quality camera. It may not have the same feeling as the, for instance, Pentax Spotmatic, the winding of the film, but definitely we can see that it is a quality camera because it's so smooth and relatively quiet. Now, let's talk about the ergonomics. That's another thing for which the Olympus OM-1 is very, very famous. And here, some people liked it, some don't. The Olympus OM-1, and for that sake all Olympus with one digit at least, have this configuration. The speeds are controlled with this ring around the lens bayonet mount. And again, this is nothing new. In fact, the Olympus OM-1 is a very original camera because it picked some systems or some things, details from other makers, and for the first time included in one single model. So this system of the shutter speed ring around the lens bayonet mount existed already in the Nikomats, Hover, Topcon cameras, so nothing new. But I think here it is implemented in a way that is best. The Nikon has a prong here, so it forces you to use your left hand. And this is the problem, is that Olympus put for the left hand many functions with this camera. So the left hand chooses the speed, focuses, and also has the apertures. Of course, the aperture ring is in front of the lens here, because if it was placed conventionally, it would cause some mistake. It would be too confusing. So this is a much better system. I do agree. But you do have three things to do with your left hand, while your right hand is a little bit too free. Just fire the shutter, and it can occasionally help with moving the shutter speed ring. Well, my opinion about this is it makes a lot of sense. It is very ergonomic, but the Olympus OM-1 is a camera that demands a monogamic relationship. It's a camera that you can't use another one. Otherwise, each time you pick it up, you have to think twice about what you are doing. Where are the commands? Where is the speed ring? Blah, 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 blah. Once you get used to it, it is second nature, really. But if you choose to have 2 or 3 systems or 2 or 3 cameras, then it is always a sort of a shock coming back to the Olympus. But once you get used to it, it's a system that works perfectly. With me, it's the same problem, because I have the problem that I have already explained. I have several cameras, but my main system in terms of lenses is, I don't know if I have already said this, I don't think so, but is Nikon. So I'm very used to the classical disposition of Nikon cameras, which is the same as Canon cameras almost, or any other brand. So whenever I pick up this camera or the Olympus OM-2, I have difficulties in placing my hands, thinking where the diaphragm ring is, etc., etc. But that is because I don't use the camera as my sole instrument or my sole camera. So if you want an Olympus OM-1 or OM-2 for that matter, you better stick to it and don't fool around with other cameras. Good. So the view from the top is actually quite nice. We have already seen the on and off button for the meter, which is not very rational. It would be much better to have a switch here with a shutter button. And this huge knob here that can be moved by depressing this button is your ASA, which you have to align it here, setting. And you might wonder, why the hell did they put such a huge knob that could easily have been for the speed ring around and put the I0 or ASA sensitivity here? This is logical because the OM2 uses exactly the same knob, but with a function of exposure compensation, and exposure compensation knobs are always big. So when this camera was designed, obviously the OM2 was already designed too. So this was to ensure in the future that the code part would be the same. Here we don't have anything more to see. Let's concentrate our eyes on the lens. The lens, not because it is a 50mm Olympus or OM lens as we call, but in the system that the lens has. There are 2 buttons on the lens, one here and one here. This one releases the lens from the bayonet. And as far as I know, the Olympus is the only one which has the bayonet release mount on the lens. For me, it works. Some people don't like it. For me, I think it's brilliant. Not that it bothers me to push a button on the camera's body, but at least it makes for a very nice and uncluttered design. There are no more buttons around the camera. And this one, another old idea, which comes straight from M42 lenses. It's a depth of field preview. This system is not new. This spring that you press and the diaphragm closes, but from all the cameras that I have, none is so well done or engineered like this one from Olympus. The advantage of this system is that every Olympus OM body does have depth of field preview, because that function it's not incorporated into the camera's body, which is nice. Okay, moving to the bottom of the camera, here we have the provision to connect a motor drive, and here you have the battery compartment, which, by the way, takes the dreaded Mercury 1.35 PX675, which is not the case here. This is the 625 1.5 volts. You just have to try and see how the camera reacts with this, or try to buy a converter, voltage converter. I think the first OM1s did not feature the capability of coupling a motor drive or winder. That's why this model has the MD letters for motor drive. Now, you might be wondering, how the hell do I put the flash on this camera? It's possible. Either you use it with a wire and externally, or you buy an accessory hot shoe that is screwed here. I think Olympus did this on purpose in order not to spoil the camera's beautiful lines. And as you don't always use flash, they thought this would be the best solution. Later on they corrected this. The OM2 SPS spot program, I think that's it, already has a normal ordinary prism that, in my opinion, takes away much of the camera's lovely design. Good. Now, let's talk about one thing that you cannot see, and it is a mix of good and bad. And this is the viewfinder. The prism might seem tiny, very small, but it depicts 97% of the image. So it's almost 100% of view. The image is bright. It is big. Believe me, it is really, really fantastically big. And you really have to have a very good excuse in order to take out of focus pictures with the OM1. But it also has, in my opinion, one of the biggest weaknesses of this camera, which is the lack of viewfinder information. So you just have a needle with plus and minus sign, and that's it. You don't know your speeds, you don't know your apertures, so each time you have to remove your eye from the camera and check whatever settings you have on the camera. And this is a bit disappointing, because by this time many other manufacturers had this sort of information in the viewfinder. With the Olympus OM1, none of that is available, and it really is a pity. Especially for me, I do like to have viewfinder information. But again, it's something that we can also live without any problem. Another absence is a battery check. There is no battery check on the Olympus OM1. Not that it is important, because it is a mechanical camera. So if the battery is dead, the worst thing that it happens is that you have to be responsible for exposure. But the camera still works perfectly in every speed available. Now, you may notice that the prism is small and it is not interchangeable. And I think Olympus did that on purpose, because interchangeable prisms are more expensive, probably would add some bulk to the camera and ruin the lines of it, the design. So they came up with another solution, which is the screen is interchangeable. And shouldn't do this, but I'm very used to it. And just to show you how childish and so simple it is, almost a child can do it, to change the screens on an Olympus OM series camera. It's really fantastic. Now, of course, I would have to have a tweezer or something like that to remove it, but once into place, we just put it back, click, and that's it. Even with your hands, you just press a small tab and it drops. It drops, but it stays within its frame. It's absolutely brilliant. You might ask, why do I need to change screens? Well, first, because there are, as the cameras get older, normally manufacturers have more brighter screens, newer screens. And then you have special screens like gridded ones, which I like a lot. Others that don't have focusing aids, which is not the case here. Here you have microprisms and the split image rangefinder. So, but this I had to show it because it's really brilliant. It's what I really call good engineering. It's so simple that from all the cameras that I have with interchangeable screens, this is by far the best one, the quickest one, the simplest one. It's absolutely amazing, and the simplest things are always the most difficult to think of. So a lot of thought must have gone into designing this camera. I think I have more or less covered every aspect of the Olympus OM-1. I do like OM cameras, I always did. Plus you have a lineup of lenses that is second to none. Unfortunately, I don't have any lenses worth of mentioning, just the standard 50 1.8 and the 28 3.5. I never acquired any lens for my Olympus cameras, so I only have the lenses that came with the OMs that I've had during all these years, and I've had plenty because I bought cameras that did not work. I bought junk cameras just for the sake of spare parts, screens, something like that. So, and some of these lenses came with those cameras. The lenses have a reputation of being very sharp, and they are quite expensive. So the system might be dead. I mean, the bayonet, OM bayonet is long gone, but the lenses are still comparably expensive when you compare them, for instance, with Canon FD lenses or Minolta MD lenses or SR lenses. They are expensive. It's true that they had some unique glass, very fast lenses with high performance, so be prepared to shell out some money for good lenses. And for my part, I think this is all that I had to say about the Olympus OM-1. A true marvel of a camera, delightful to use. If you choose to have one, I don't think you will ever regret it. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you very soon in another video of mine.